Hey everyone, as you start getting in, we are going to start here in just a second. So we'll let everyone get settled in, and I'm going to start sharing my screen and get into the topic that we are going to talk about today, which is all the new things in SoterAI. We've had a lot of releases, but there is one in particular that I want to make sure everyone understands. So whenever I come on, it's usually to instruct and inform how to use the product in a more power user kind of way, but also as an update to what's new in the platform. So that's what we're going to focus on today. My name is Dr. Mike Goetsch. I'm the head of product here for SoterAI, and well, you've probably been in here before where I've done these, so hopefully they're as beneficial for you guys as they are for me, because they actually help me kind of conceptually talk through some of the products that we're releasing. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about projects. Projects is a new product within SoterAI, and there are some technical reasons why this is important, but I want to frame it more as like an agentic folder. You guys in insurance and industry all use folders for organization of information. So, your client data is all within a single folder, and you can store everything there. It's organized, you can find it, it's easy to source, but then also it's easy for you to come back to and not only find that information, but be able to make decisions off the information that's stored inside of that folder. And so, because you guys work out of folders, we wanted to build a system that mimicked that approach, but had some AI advantages to it. So, any chat, any workflow, any document that you work on or create within SoterAI, if it's inside of a project, is remembered forever. So that information that you're doing, let's say in a workflow, you're doing an assessment or you're doing a claims review, that information should not just be forgotten after you're done with that chat, because for most of you, you're doing very important client work or you're doing specific site audits, and critical context that is in those workflows or chats might be useful later on. And so what we want to show today is how to best use projects and what use cases, but then how to get the most out of it. So really the goal is, as you get started with figuring out how you might use projects, and that's kind of part of my goal is, showcase some use cases, but then also the real advantage to this is not necessarily your first chat within a project that you do. It's really the 10th chat where now you have, all this history built up and the AI has not forgotten any of that critical context. So that's what projects is. And if I was to shift over into like some of the use cases, I tend to have like a dual personality here because we service a lot of insurance, people, but we also service a lot of industry clients that are safety teams and HR teams. And so I sometimes have to separate how we talk about our products because sometimes they can be very different. So, but there is some overlap. So the way that I would separate or think about projects is if you're in the insurance world, like client specific work, meaning like you guys already have workspaces for each of your clients. But then if you are doing a site visit or if you're managing their claims or if you're doing other specific work, using projects for a singular site visit. Let's just use that example, and I'll showcase a real demo later. But you go on site, you may use SoterAI to do an ergonomic assessment, a hazard review. You might review some documents. All of that information could be done within a project, and now SoterAI is building on itself. Before, you would just do it in a workspace, and you could go back and find all the chats and find all the reports that are generated, and that's good. But it was really difficult to organize and find all that information when you got done with those assessments. And so projects can be a really powerful way to organize and find it all, but then also build the AI context over time. For our industry clients, I have talked to a lot of people that are beginning to use it as like a safety program folder. So if you've got an ergonomics program that you're kicking off and you're starting, putting all the documents that pertain to that program or the training materials or connecting any data sources that may be impacting that program, you begin to have an agent that knows that program inside and out, that can help answer questions, that can perform assessments to see if you're staying on track. You can really begin to build these projects in a way that become an invaluable asset beyond, if you're using the platform. So, as a safety manager, a lot of times you're the single point of failure when it comes to some of these safety programs because you wrote it, you designed it, you built it. And what could be really helpful is if you put tools into your employees' hands that has all that context available, they can begin to perform assessments and have that information at their fingertips. So that's how I've seen it in these main two. But really, in this last bucket is like any item of work that is performed over a longer period of time. If you're just coming in to get a quick, get a question answered or perform a quick little piece of research, the general chat is really good at that. You don't necessarily need to set up a project and, make it all formal. But if there's something that like this is something that I want to track and manage over time, I want to make sure I have these things organized. Projects is a really effective container to use that for. So, what are some of the pieces of projects that could be really helpful? To start a new project, it's as simple as just naming that project. So let's say we called it project number one. Whatever that may be. Like I said, I'll show you some examples here of how we've used it for site visits and claims. But it's as simple as naming that project. I would obviously name it, something according to the thing that you're working on. And then just a brief description, just for context. This is just for your own awareness. And what you would see here is for this site audit, I put this description: an on-site inspection done at a client site in Charlotte, North Carolina. Like if the identifiers here at the top, the name that I gave it didn't, give me all the information I had, the description would help open that as well. And then this would be like the claim number, right? And the company and the date of loss. And so you can use that project, the naming and the description for your own understanding, because we have people that already have 100 projects, built up for all the claims that they're managing throughout their workspace, or all the clients that they're managing throughout their workspace. And so, that's how you would start a new project. But then we also have bulk upload. So let's say you do a lot of client work, or you have, 15 different safety programs that you're managing. What we have allowed for is a bulk upload where if you just put everything into a spreadsheet, like each client is a row, or each program is a row, and you upload that spreadsheet, it will, extract all that context and create all of your projects for you. And so that's how a lot of people are, if you're like, man, I've got a ton of clients, like how I'm going to manually upload all of that, you can use that bulk upload feature there. So now let's get into the specifics of like what a project is, what it does, how does it work? So I'm going to open up this site audit project demo that we have and show you kind of the guts of what a project is. So you'll see here a timeline. These are all the chats and workflows that have been completed within a project. So from in chronological order. So you'll be able to see the things you did first all the way to the most recent. With that being said, now you can, click in and let's just, go into the walkthrough photo. So now it's an easier way to navigate. Okay, I remember doing this walkthrough. Okay, that's great. Whereas, if I was to have to go into my history over here and try to find it, I would have to go all the way back to July 28th. And there's so many other chats that I've done since then. So it becomes really difficult. Whereas now I can find all of these very quickly. So that's a really easy way to organize work and be able to find things later on. One of the key things that is really important for how this works for the memory is this summary column over here on the far right. So if I was to click on this firewood palette ergonomics summary, what you're going to find is that this is the AI's summary of what that workflow did and what were the components. So, for example, this is a really good one. This is a site audit. And it took all this tabs and information from everything that has happened and summarized it so that the AI can quickly, put in the facts that it needs to remember. This is literally like a memory, ball for it to come back to and resurface in future chats. I always think of it as something like I don't know if you've seen the Pixar cartoon Inside Out, but it's like a little memory that is stored and easily retrievable as opposed to having to take the entire chat history. And so here's another thing that might be helpful. You can also edit its memory. So let's say it got a number wrong. Let's say this number was wrong and you were just checking to make sure. And let's just say that anyone's going to perform, this level of detail. But let's say it was 228,000, right? I could go in and quickly change this. And now the AI's memory has been updated. So if I was to actually ask that information again, it would not use the old number. It would now use the new number. So you're actually, kind of performing brain surgery in a way on the AI and its memories, which is really cool because now you're in control of what it can remember and what it doesn't remember. Some of the other pieces, how to actually start a new chat or start a new workflow inside of a project. So I would navigate into the project. So you're here, you've got the projects on the left-hand tab here. You've started a project. You'd open that up, and then you just click New Chat. And what you'll find is you'll see this little blue element here in the top right. You'll know you're inside of a project if you have that element here notifying you that it's inside of that project. If you don't see that, you're not inside of a project. If you want to start a new workflow, let's say you wanted to do a new Ergo Advisor workflow, you could click on that, and now I'm inside of an Ergo Advisor workflow inside of that project, which can become really helpful if I want to build, an ergonomic assessment based off of some historical data, and like some of that data is really important. It could be really valuable to do that. What I would also say is if you have, let's say, performed a chat in the past and it is not inside of a project. So I'm going to go into my history and see if I can find something really quick. Yeah, that one's already inside of a project. So let me see if I can find one that's not real quick. Yeah, let's do this one right here. I can quickly move to project, put it inside of this one, and then boom. So just go up to that top 3 menu here and then add it into that project. And now it's going to be present inside of that project, which is a really quick way to add it back in. So that's the timeline. That's all the kind of details of how to use it. But here's some other interesting things that you can do. You can give it specific items that it's going to need to remember. Let's say there are injury loss runs. Let's say there's your field notes. Let's say you've recorded some manual or some paper summaries that you took on site and you scan them and put them in. You can add these extra sources just to this project so that maybe you don't want to store it in the data sources of the entire workspace, but it's really important for this site audit. You could then upload those documents there inside of sources right here with the upload file and just drag and drop them in there. The other option is you can add URLs. So let's say there is a Google Drive link or a SharePoint link or a OneDrive link or something like that you want it to be focused on or use or add as its summary or as its context. You can add that there in the URL section as well. And then obviously instructions is just custom built instructions for that project. So I just put something basic like this project covers the Calder Ridge site audit. As a risk control, you're going to act as a risk control part of our team. And it's going to add those details into every chat. And then you can invite people into this project as well, which is obviously self-explanatory there. So what could be done in this type of a project? What kind of insights or how could it pull information across all of these chats? So one of the things that I want to do is I'm actually going to showcase how this might work. So I'm going to say from analyzing the findings in this inspection, so like this inspection, this site audit, what portions of their health and safety manual are being ignored by workers the most commonly? So what this will do then is it's got access to the health and safety manual because I had put that into the sources. It's going to run an analysis across all the inspections that have been done throughout this entire project. And now it's going to begin to bring data sources together and then find where is from my site audit findings, what's being ignored inside of the actual health and safety manual. And you can kind of see how quickly it's moving through all of these different sections to come up with the fact that, based off the findings, the machine guarding and tools equipment, it's going to say what the manual has to say and then what was found, in what workflow and all of that. So you can quickly perform a cross analysis of that site visit, and this is true if I was to go back over here and go into the claim project. So I had made this other thing. You could also do this for claims. So you have all of these different, workflows or chats that you're doing, for a claim. And you may want to remember what happened back, at the initial, date of loss, and how does that compare to, maybe the closure, and like you're trying to do some type of a stewardship, kind of report. You could take all that information and funnel it into this type of an infographic. Since we have artifacts now, you could produce a something with inside of that project that takes every single chat, every single data source that was found inside of that project, and creates this really interesting kind of interactable kind of graphic that you then can showcase with your client, where you can show all the details, all the days, the return to work progression, the key outcomes, and it could be something that you build, for your client as an extra deliverable, based off of the fact that everything is stored here within a project. And so that's kind of a quick little demo of like how you could piece it all together. A couple of the other things, the anatomy of a project. Like I've kind of already been through this, but I just want to double click on this, which is, the chronological timeline is really important for a couple of reasons that we found. A lot of people were struggling to find historical chats. The history was not a very easy way to find all of those. So if you find yourself always having to go back into your history to find chats, I would suggest beginning to use projects to help store that information so it becomes a lot easier to find. The specific sources, I think that this is a unique thing, because if, let's say, you have a workspace and you are doing work for a specific client inside of that workspace, you may be working on a project for a claim that you may not want to have available to the rest of the workspace. It may be something that is unique to that. Maybe that's the initial claim intake form that you received. That may not be context that you need available when you're doing chats about a different topic. But for that unique claim, that piece of information is critical piece of context. That's where you could really put into the sources tab of the project, and it would be exclusive to that project, not the whole workspace. And then custom instructions. This is something that I think gets overlooked only because it's a free text area. When I come back into the product, it just looks like an empty text box that you have 100,000 characters that you can put in here. And what I always tell people is people are really scared to just start typing information or instructions, because they're like, how does this benefit? How is it going to improve the analysis? Or what's going to make a difference in the chats and work? Like, what's the tangible benefit of me adding instructions? And I say to that, you could add something like this, which is very basic and generic, or, like, and this is a silly example, but it gets to the heart of it. It's like, add a heart emoji to, I misspelled emoji, what, not a good millennial of me, to every message you send back. Like, it's a silly example, but what it kind of instantiates for a lot of people is, oh, I can change the outputs, or I can inflict like a difference of tone, or I can make it, respond in a way that is, a bit more direct or shorter, or, like a bit more concise. Or maybe there's specific things that maybe you would tell a junior employee that you're instructing how to perform a site audit. You could throw it in here, and then that critical context then gets stored as instructions every time it does a chat, every time it does a workflow, or anytime it does a review. It's going to have those instructions as critical context. So that's the anatomy of this project, of these projects. And really what we are trying to allow for is much richer context over time. So when this is the most recent chat, or the most recent workflow that I did, this workflow should be much more rich in context than the first one, right? Whenever you use the regular workspace, it's like, and you just start a new chat, it's like 50 First Dates. I don't know if you remember that Adam Sandler movie, but every time she woke up a new day, it had zero context or limited context to what happened the day before. That's similar to AI in that anytime you start a new chat, it's almost like there's very limited context that is available to the AI unless you provide it. So a lot of people were having to upload files multiple times. They're having to retell SoterAI, hey, here's the context of what's going on. Now do your analysis. Whereas what projects can do is it removes that admin work at the beginning so that all these chats and information starts to build on itself. And so that's a really critical piece of user experience or usability that I think is really important. The other couple of things that I would mention, obviously you can quickly edit any of the details like the name and the description. That's pretty straightforward. But if let's say you completed a project and you are done with it and you want to clean up your interface, you obviously could click the complete project and it would move it into this completed section. But let's say I accidentally, created another project, or, I bulk uploaded one and I didn't, it wasn't meant to be in there. You can also use archived, because what archived is going to do is put it in a different tab to where the ones that you finished, like you've done this full site audit, there's like 14 chats and there's like all this work that's being done. You can find the ones that are really valuable. They're just completed, or you can go over here to the archived ones and see the ones that maybe were unnecessary or weren't finished. So there's just a little distinction there. And then the last one is make public. So right now, I'm the only person who can view this project. There's one member in this project, right? But I could make it public. And what does that mean? That means that anybody within my workspace now has access to that project. So if I added people to my workspace, now they can see those projects. If I didn't want everyone to have access, I would make it private. And then I would come in here to the members and say, okay, I want Dimitri to now have access. And he would then get invited into that project. So now there'd be two members, whereas Mike and Jess would still not have access to this project because it's still private, but now I've invited Dimitri. What we believe this will allow for is a bit more collaborative project development. So if you've got multiple people working for a client on like a claim or a renewal or on some type of site visit or something like that, you can then begin to add more work as a team as opposed to one individual doing it in their workspace and then another individual doing it in a different workspace. You just do it within one project and it can become a really valuable asset for you over time. So that's how I would recommend doing that when it comes to the members. And then obviously I think we can reopen the project so then it would come back here and be available. I see a couple of questions coming in. So let me see if I can navigate back over there to the Zoom and see what we have here. Q&A. Are you able to take prior chats and merge them into a new project? Good question, Nick. So yes, you can. There is going to be, let me see if I can get all the way over here to this. Let's say I wanted to take, for whatever reason, the standard height for guardrails chat. You would click up here in the top right, this top three, and there's a move to project, and then I could select which project I wanted to add it to. So yes, absolutely easily done. Jeff says, Mike, hey Jeff, how are you doing? Maybe you came up later. Are you able to nest projects inside of a project? That's a really meta question. We are working on that because we actually do see a use case for that. So yes, it is coming where multiple projects can be nested inside of it. So more to come on that. Nick, great question though. From an agency client perspective, could you make the individual client a project and compile ongoing loss analytics? Yes, absolutely, Jeff. That's exactly, how I would recommend using projects is literally if you're managing a client, and I've used this example before. It's like XYZ Construction is my client, and then every bit of work, every bit of data, every loss summary, everything just gets stored in that project. And then after a year, you've got a whole history of work you've done for an XYZ construction that you can chat against. You can generate stewardship reports. You can get ready for renewals a little bit easier because now you have an AI that remembers all the work you've done for XYZ construction. And that would really be a really powerful use case because I can tell you, we have built a stewardship report workflow for one of our clients, and they began compiling all their work inside of a project, and they took a stewardship report that would take them a couple of days for some of their more complex clients to generate, and now it generates it in 15 minutes because all of their work is happening inside of a project. And then they would add a couple of information that may be inside of Epic that they couldn't bring in. But it really cuts down the time of documentation and admin work. Are projects able to be shared? Yes. So you can share a project with people in that are already SoterAI members. So they would need to be in the platform, but then yes, you could share a link to the project. You could either invite them in or you can share it with them, and then they come in and begin to contribute to it. Are projects visible across multiple workspaces? No. And the reason for that is the privacy of the data. So when you're in a workspace, we do not want data that's inside of a workspace to be visible or shared with another workspace because it creates a data, a data issue. If you have multiple clients and multiple workspaces, you wouldn't want that data to somehow leak. So we put really tight guardrails on the workspace structure so that data can't get out. And that comes with some drawbacks too. So but we find that the data security and privacy is a much higher order bit there. Can you copy a chat from a new project so you can use the same prompt format with the new data? Yes. Can you copy it? I'm trying to think of how I might be able to show that real fast. Can you copy a chat to a new project so you can use the same prompt format with new data? Yeah, so how I would do that, Sydney, is let's say you have a prompt or even a custom workflow. So like we haven't even talked about the other major release because that was kind of a couple of months ago. But let's say you created a custom workflow or you have a prompt that you really like to use. You could then just bring it into a project and open it up, start a new chat, and then boom, now you've got your prompt in there, and then it can run off of the new data or all the data that's inside of that project. So that's how I would do that. I've had issues sharing with members of my team as they have to be in my workspace. When they are in my workspace, they're able to see all of when they are able to see all my chats and data. So the anonymous attendee, I'm not sure your name. The best way to do that is to make sure that your chats and everything are private. So let me see if I can get to a chat that makes sense here. So I can show this to you. So boom, let me get this Q&A panel out of the way. What you may be doing is having everything on public over here on the right-hand side. And if you want to flip it over to private, then everything becomes guarded. So it is private by default for your workspace. So either you've accidentally clicked it public, or maybe it is just shifted to public in that workspace. So just be cognizant of that. Within projects, obviously you have to click it. It is private by default as well. You would have to click to make it public. So that's the only way that somebody that is invited would be able to see that. How do you remove a chat from a project? I would come in here and oh, I thought that history was going to be right there. That may be some functionality that we need to do. Obviously, you could delete a conversation outside of you could delete the conversation, but then you would lose that context. So that actually is a good call out. If somebody wants to remove a conversation from a project, how would you do that? One of the hacks that you could do, and this is kind of a funny way, is let's say you wanted to remove this work through photos one. You'd go into the memory of the patient or of the patient. Wow. You'd go into the memory of that chat, and literally you can click edit and go boom, and now it doesn't remember anything about that chat. Now the chat still exists, the chat would still be present, but it wouldn't remember any of those details. So that may be a clever little hack. But let me actually go to work on that because that would be a really good feature to be able to remove chats. I've noticed that all other chats, when you add someone to a workspace, are visible. Is there a way to change this? All other chats, when you add someone to a workspace, are visible. So, yeah, to whoever's the anonymous attendee, like I said earlier, all chats are private by default. So that may be something that are, when you have invited somebody in, they are either an owner or they have a much higher role than you and are able to see everything. But even still, even if you have private chats or private projects, they will not be able to see those projects. They will not be able to see those chats and workflows. So if there is something that you see in your workspace that is different than what I just said, please screenshot that and message me at mike.goetsch@SoterAnalytics, because I want to see that, because that should not, it should not be happening. You answered all these. Sorry, how to make an existing chat to a new project. Yeah, Logan, let me show that one more time. So if I wanted to go over here, show that one more time, I would go into the top. Let's get over here to the guardrail heights. Boom, move to project. So this is an existing or an old chat. I would then just add it and pick and select which one I want to add it to there. Perfect. Pretty easy. Just that top right. If a project is public, is everything public? Can I have hidden chats from others on my team who may have access to the same project? No, once they're in a project, the details and everything inside of that project are available to that user. So if there's a unique use case or angle there where that may be something you need, message me, because like I can see how that might be a use case that we build for. So yeah, just let me know. Real quick, I know we're over time already. Our external resources preloaded. Yeah, all those, Sydney, all those things are preloaded in there already. Joshua Schultz, are you finding a way to embed company logos and make branded work for all of the work? Yeah, for each individual project. So if you want to upload the company templates, if you want to upload a project, if you want to upload logos, you put that right here into sources. So I have done that on a couple of occasions where I will put in the template or the branding guidelines into sources, and then every chat uses that as the branding source. So you may have to prompt it and say, hey, my branding guidelines are in the sources to go find it, type of thing. With projects, can you upload company logos? Yep, yep, just like that. Same thing. It will definitely cut down on report generation timelines for a specific project. So if you have a specific format that you want it to get to, upload it into sources. And then when it goes to generate its report, just say, use the template that's in my sources. If you add a chat or workflow to a project, can you move it into a new project? No, right now, it's simple. It's one chat or one workflow per project. That I can also see a scenario where that you might want it in multiple projects. But right now we're trying to keep it simple and get the usage, get people's feedback on how that might be expanded. Right now it's still a new thing. It's a new project within Soter. It has a lot of usage already, but if there are those little edge cases where you're like, I actually would like it to be in multiple projects, like I said, you guys can always message me. Like I said, Mike, M-I-K-E .Goetsch, Goetsch. Email me those use cases, because like if something's going to get built, it's going to run through myself and the product team. So yeah, appreciate you guys' time. I know we're a couple minutes over. Can you move it from one project to another? Yes, you can move it from one project to another. That is one thing I know you can do. So yeah. With that being said, I know I've gone over. I know you probably all have to get back to your day, but like I said, please do not hesitate to email me. I am all ears when it comes to ideas on how to make the product better. So please do not hesitate. I will put it here in the chat for a brief second. Let me put it here. We'll go here. Oh, I don't think I'm allowed to. Let's see. I'll just type answer here. I'm going to respond to this person's question with my There we go. So that's my email address for everybody if you don't have it already. And with that being said, copy that down. And then if you have questions, feel free to email me anytime. So I appreciate your time and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.